Good morning, friends, and welcome to another painting stream. Oh man. Okay. Yes, this time for realsies. Hi, I'm Andrew, also known as Thanatos here in the internet, and this is my painting stream where I go online and I paint minis. Boy, that took a little bit of doing, but here we are. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I was saying, although I was muted when I was attempting to stream earlier, that I had a fantastic weekend, but gorged myself silly and became somewhat nocturnal. Amanda has had the week off, and whenever that happens, we slowly sort of stay up later and later each night until eventually we're, sleeping till noon and staying up till 4. Which means it was very difficult for me to get up at an appropriate time for today's stream. I mostly managed to do it. I started 15 minutes late, and then nothing worked. I had no audio, and then when I fixed the audio, my webcam was busted, and so here, we're starting fresh, we're starting clean, and we're going to paint some minis. Yes, so here's what we're at right now. Going over to Zoom Cam. Oh no, Zoom Cam is gone! Why? Why Zoom Cam? Now here we are. Okay. So here we are. So last week we painted the shields for a group of Blade Guard. These are Black Templar Space Marines. And I got some detail done on the rest of one Black Templar. And my mission for this week is to try and finish these 6 Black Templar. I don't know if I can do that. That's an ambitious goal, and my energy level is not great right now. But we're going to see what we can do, starting with their power swords. You can see that his power sword is just completely matte black, has not been painted. And we're going to try and make them look somewhat like the power sword for this marshal that I painted. Where we've got sort of a... It's not really a non-metallic metal, but it is a sort of a two-tone effect on the sword. And we're going to do some lightning. I want to improve this one. I'm not super satisfied with how this one looks. It looks a little better on the back than it does on the front. So that's the goal, is to try and get the power swords done for these other 6 and maybe fix this power sword a little bit and give them a cool electric looking feel. Make them more alive. So yeah, I'm just gonna dive into it, and we're gonna see what we can do. I don't know if we'll finish all 6 power swords today, especially now that I've wasted 20 minutes trying to get my stream running properly. But yeah, let's see what we can get done. As I said, I'm not doing a non-metallic metal thing, but I am still doing a sort of two-tone effect on the sword, just so it's not too monochrome. And the way that we're doing that is with a little bit of wet blending, a little bit of shading. This is why these swords take so much time, is that I'm not satisfied to just paint them one color and have done with it. So what I've done is, on the first one that I did, which is this one here, we went from a somber gray to a stonewall gray on the dark side of the blade. So it's sort of a dark side and a light side of the blade. Ooh, that came out thick. It's fine, we're going to be doing some blending anyways. There's the somber gray. Cool. and then on the other side, we're going to go from Stonewall Gray to Deck Tan, which is my mostly white that I use a lot. Thank you for joining me, Lobster. It must... I mean, I guess you always join me at this hour, but for you, it's normally 7 a.m., not 10 a.m., and now you're... I don't know how jet lag works when you take a train ride across the U.S. Are you lagged? Did the fact that it took you several days to make the journey actually make it easier on you? I don't know. This coffee is so good. This coffee is so good. This is my Secret Santa special Christmas coffee that I got. And it's a orange and chocolate blend coffee. And oh, it's so delicious. Alright. Let's see what we can do with these sword blades. It's going to be a little bit time consuming because I'm not particularly great at blending. It's not a skill that I'm really fantastic at. But that's fine, because, you know, as I always say, this is very much a stream about learning how to do stuff. Start in the sort of dark on this side of the blade. And then we're going to try and do sort of a fade to a lighter color further up on the blade. Like I said, wet blending. Something that I've tried in the past to varying degrees of success. So at the other end of the blade, I want it much brighter up here at the top end. Bit of a fade in the middle. Yeah, chat, I had a very pleasant Christmas season, full of presents and enormous amounts of food, just colossal amounts of food, which is sort of the way holidays tend to work for me. Both my wife and I love to cook, so a lot of food in our bellies. It's not a very smooth blend, but I think it's okay. And then on the other side of the blade, we're actually going to start with the somber gray down at the bottom. This is straight up line between the sides as I can. Somber gray at the bottom and deck tan at the top. Looks passable, I guess. I'm going to get a lot of practice at this today. Alright, let's do the other side. Over time, I'm sure I'll get better at this. It's just one of those things where you develop a technique as you go. So I got a chance to watch the new Matrix movie, Matrix Resurrections, yesterday. And I don't really know how I feel about it. I had heard a number of varying opinions on it, and wasn't sure what to expect. But I guess I had built up expectations for something a little more challenging. It was fine. If ultimately it felt unnecessary. Like, it was a movie about rebooting, right? It very much was about trying to find a reason to care about these characters. You could almost feel the struggle of the authors in trying to make the characters feel relevant again. And I don't know if it succeeded. It was fun in a sort of nostalgic way, which it poked fun at to a certain degree. But I never felt that it made a compelling case for its own existence. I don't know. Interesting thing about the first Matrix is I never saw it in the theater. I saw it on DVD and watched it many, many times, naturally. because it is exactly my jam. But I never saw it in the theater. Um, Partially because I had heard at the time that aesthetically it borrowed a good deal from God, what's it called? French weird film. I know that's very specific. June and Caro's film with what was it called? The City of Lost Children. And there were some bits that felt like there was some aesthetic similarity, but more it was just the color palette. And I don't think that really counts as stealing. There were a lot of green movies at that time. Color correction, digital color correction was just beginning to be a thing at that point in the 90s. And there were a lot of green movies. I will say that of the green movie about a messianic hero birth story of the 90s, which was a genre. Of that genre, my favorite is still Lost City. Alex Proyas's fantastic, weird movie. That is a movie I have watched probably hundreds of times. But The Matrix is up there. So, I want a new Matrix film to succeed. I want it to do well. I'm a fan of the Wachowskis. Although I guess this was just Lana. But they tend to take on perhaps more than they can work with. I don't know. Ever since the original Matrix, they've had this issue where their movies are a little uneven and feel overambitious. Certainly Matrix 2 and 3 suffered from that. Cloud Atlas is a spectacular film, but incredibly ambitious. I'd say their best is probably Speed Racer, weirdly. I love Speed Racer. It's a movie with a very video game aesthetic. It's sort of the anti-Matrix, certainly in terms of color palette. Speed Racer, instead of being color corrected to all greens, is brilliant and vibrant and colorful. Reds and whites and greens, and all very primary color palette. part of why people were slightly turned off by it, is that it looks very cartoonish. But it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I thought it was a really fun movie. I really enjoyed what I saw of Sense8. It began to get into a realm of so one of the things that I have a great deal of difficulty with is stories where people have to pretend to be somebody or something that they're not. It gives me a great deal of discomfort to watch that sort of thing. And that's very much part of what Sense8 involves as the characters are discovering their connections. They're getting into various sticky situations and have to bluff their way out of them at times, and it's painful for me to watch. So I enjoyed Sense8, but I couldn't endure it for that long. I like how that's looking. I feel like as I'm going, I'm getting better. The last sword will be the best sword. But yeah, I do like the Wachowskis. And I do like The Matrix, and I wanted this movie to be interesting and relevant, and I wanted it to challenge my preconceived notions of The Matrix. And I don't know that it did that. I don't know that it achieved any of what I wanted it to do. And that doesn't make it a bad movie. It just means it's not the movie I wanted. If I had made a Matrix sequel, it's not the sequel I would have made. Very much purports to be a study of the nature of choice, duality of choice. Like, do we actually get to make choices for ourselves? Is one of the themes of the movie. And its inability to settle on an answer to that question weakens it somewhat, I think. But again, it's also mostly a movie about why we should care about these characters still. And we do care about them. It spends a lot of time trying to get us reinvested in Neo. The first movie, the first Matrix movie, there was very, very little time spent on Neo's in-Matrix life, right? We didn't really get to see, we knew he was miserable, but we really didn't get to see much of it. And this movie spent a lot more time on that than perhaps was necessary. but then I don't know, it couldn't figure out what his outside the Matrix life was either. I think part of the problem is that at the end of the first movie, and this has been a problem throughout the Matrix series, at the end of the first movie, Neo wakes up, right? He sees the Matrix for what it is. He can see the code, and he can manipulate it to a certain degree. Which essentially makes him a god. And when your main character is a god, how do you keep things interesting from a narrative standpoint? This is something that the writers of, for example, Superman have struggled with for decades. And the common narrative mechanic that is used to resolve that dilemma is to introduce other gods, or perhaps a reflection of your primary character, a dark reflection. And this has worked to varying degrees through a number of fictions. But it's not the solution that the Matrix landed on. Until perhaps this episode. Certainly, the analyst is a worthy adversary for Neo. So I like that. But the general way that the Matrix has dealt with giving its protagonist godlike powers at the end of the first movie is to essentially retcon it and say, well, no, he can fly, or, he can hit things real hard, but he's not really a god. He sees the code, but he doesn't manipulate it really, maybe, I don't know. They waffle about it a lot, and they're not terribly clear about Neo's power set. In the most recent movie, pretty much his only abilities are hitting things and sort of a force shield. If he screams hard enough, he can create a force shield. Maybe it makes him a more compelling character, but for me, it makes the series less interesting to watch after the first movie. The second movie has one moment where it really feels like it's a worthy successor to the first movie. And that's right at the end of the second movie, when the squids arrive at the Nebuchadnezzar and they're about to kill everybody. And Neo sees their code, sees them as yellow code, and is able to shut them down. That was an interesting development that I was really looking forward to seeing them do more with, and it never came up again. They added this piece to his power set, and then immediately decided, I don't know, that's too much. And it was such a fascinating ability to add, because it added so much depth to the world. Because how can he see the code when he's not plugged in? How can he manipulate the Sentinels? The obvious answer is he is still plugged in, and the Sentinels themselves are code. Which means that even that the quote-unquote real world of the Matrix is just another Matrix. Which made so much sense because the architect, in his long-winded and ridiculous speech in the second Matrix movie, talks about the fact that there have been other versions of the Matrix. We knew this. And that each one was an iteration on prior ones. And my headcanon is that those successive matrices are built one atop the other, and that waking from one matrix is not waking up to the real world, but waking up to the matrix that code is built inside of. It's a nested system. I've always thought that was a compelling idea, and it's not something they ever returned to. And I realize that critiquing something in terms of what it is not, like that it's not what I imagine or desire, is not a valid form of criticism, really. It's very reductive. Saying this isn't what I thought it should be does not necessarily mean that it's not good. But I've been pretty much disappointed in every Matrix movie since then, because they fail to address that really intriguing notion. So chat, I've done 2 swords. I haven't even gotten the power bits in. Oh man, this is time-consuming work. I feel like I'm getting better at it? Question mark? It's taking me 15 minutes a sword. Well, that's not bad. That pretty much lines up. Means that I'll be finishing these swords by noonish, maybe? Might have to speed up a little bit. guess perhaps my biggest critique of Matrix Resurrections is that it feels like it spends a lot of time justifying its own existence um, without um, without actually doing anything new. It talks a lot about nostalgia, right? And its ability to sway people. But it doesn't actually offer anything compelling or interesting. It has some new characters, but you barely meet them. Like, that you get a name. You get no sense of a lot of the new characters. Like, the entire crew of the new ship, they're just names and faces and nothing else. So it's a movie all about Neo and Trinity. And even Trinity barely exists. Ah, man, the more I think about it, the more frustrated I am by the movie. And not for the reason... So, I was kind of looking forward to it because a bunch of people had said how confusing it was and how it made no sense. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to see a Matrix movie that challenges my perception of what the Matrix should be, that is interesting from an analytical and cognitive position. Like, that sounds interesting. I'd love to watch that movie. I want to be confused. If I'm not confused watching a Matrix movie, what am I even there for? So we watched this movie, and I never really felt like I didn't know what was going on, or what the motivations were. It painstakingly tells you what it's doing. That's not challenging or interestingly. It's you can't have the characters tell you how they feel. That makes me feel angry. I don't know. Do these swords work? Who knows? Who even knows how swords are supposed to look, right? Swords are just imaginary. Am I supposed to be critiquing Casablanca now? A Matrix version of Casablanca, wouldn't that be interesting? Where Neo gives up Trinity at the end. Because he realizes that there's a better life for her. Maybe he stays in the Matrix and lets her escape. Oh man, that's so much more compelling. Damn it! Why didn't they make that movie? Damn it! thing is, Lobster, yeah, Neo Gets Girl is too weak a motivation for saving the world. But this movie isn't even about saving the world, really. It never gets there. It's like, maybe in the next Matrix movie they'll save the world, and they'll be able to do it because Neo and Trinity together as a unit have enormous power. But, this is not that movie. It introduces some cool concepts, definitely. But it's a movie about saving Neo and Trinity from the Matrix again. And why are they even still alive? And it gives an answer to those questions, but never really feels like it has a compelling reason for them to be saved. Aside from, oh man, you're Neo. You totally had an effect on me when I was a kid. I'm glad I got a chance to watch it, I guess. And I'm glad, obviously a lot of people had fun making this movie. I hope. And Neil Patrick Harris steals every scene he's in. Oh my god. He's the best thing in the movie. And the best reason to watch it. It's more a movie about him than anything else, really. So I'm in my haste. I'm leaving a lot of streaks on these swords. And I think that actually looks pretty cool. So that's kind of the aesthetic I'm going for now, is streaky swords. Like right there, I like that. That looks good. Looks okay. Yeah. Halfway there, chat. I got half the swords done. We started at about 10:30. It's about 11:20 now. I don't know. I've got 3 more swords to go. And we haven't even gotten to any of the lightning. Any of the really interesting bits. Excuse me. I do like the Matrix movies, or I like the Matrix concept because I'm a fan of the Plato's cave idea. That if we're unable to tell, if there's a reality beyond what we perceive, there's no way to truly understand it. Which is an interesting concept to play with. And I enjoy getting in that headspace of what is really real. What of the things that you experience are reality? That's an interesting question, and I enjoy messing with that. It's not a question that the Matrix actually spends a lot of time on, really. It sort of is the core conceit, but then it's like, well, we're done talking about that. Now let's talk about this instead. Let's talk about free will in a scripted fiction. Do characters in a fictional universe have free will? I mean, that gets into an area of narrative believability, right? A character in a fictional world can do anything, as long as it's something that the viewer accepts as a logical thing for that character to do. Do real people have free will? That's an interesting question, and I don't have an easy answer because I don't think there is an easy answer. I guess it comes down to what motivates you. Trying to think this through and come up with a rational way to say this. Your choices in life in as much as you have choices in life are dictated by your circumstances. I very much want to make my wife happy and to make my cat happy. And much of what I do is predicated on those two notions. Does that mean that my choices are restricted? Maybe? I'm not going to run away and live in a remote commune if it means I don't get to bring my wife and cat with me. I'm lucky enough to be able to do most of the things I want to do. Almost everything that I want. Is within my ability to achieve. Now, part of that is, I guess, setting realistic goals. I'm not trying to do anything that's not really physically possible for me. I don't know. I am fully aware of how astonishingly lucky I am. Lucky in the life that I live, lucky in the people that I know. This is why I often wonder about the nature of my reality, is that it seems so implausibly good. But at the same time, I care a great deal about how people who are not me are doing, and am fully aware that there are unthinkably vast teeming masses who do not have the benefits that I have in life. And very much part of what motivates me is a desire for those masses to have a better life. I don't actually have much agency in that realm, which is sometimes frustrating to me. Like, I can't improve the circumstances for the vast majority of humanity. And we're living in an apocalyptic time, or at least that's certainly how it feels. Things are going to get worse. And I don't have much ability to help wish I did. Maybe that plays into that notion of free will. Because there are things I don't do because I don't want to jeopardize the easy life that I do have. Like, I have not gone into politics because I know what a cesspool it is. And I'm not a particularly... I don't deal well with people. Not super pleased with this, how that came up, and it's okay. I'm fond of thinking deep thoughts, and I'm very much a dreamer, but I'm not somebody who actually puts a lot of effort into making my dreams reality. And maybe that's just, part of being human. Is that we have ambitions, and only a very few lucky individuals have the means to see those ambitions realized. I don't know. Maybe it circles back. Maybe it all comes back to what I was talking about with the Matrix and the narrative dilemma of the Messiah figure. I have grand dreams. I often think about what I would do if I were in a position of power. But I'm not, and not likely to be in a position of power because I am not the sort of person who has the force of will to match my ambitions to my circumstances, if that makes sense. can barely get myself out of bed enough to paint the swords of a bunch of minis in the morning. How am I going to put myself in a position where I control the world, even my own destiny? It's coming out okay. What do you think, chat? Progress. Progress, progress. I think my biggest lesson from the Matrix is if I want to see the stories that I want to see, I'm probably going to have to make them myself. So I should be doing more writing. Write the stories I want to see. That's the greatest power fantasy of the author, right? Is that as long as they work within the narrative structure they've established, the author is the creator of a world. And can bring into that world whatever they want to see. I'll never have the ability to shape this world, but I could create a world in my head, a dream world, that I have complete control over. Of course, the reality is authors don't have that much control over their worlds. And it's that narrative dissonance thing. You can write anything, but it needs to work narratively with the world you've established. This is the second to last sword. I'm almost done with it. I've got 20 minutes left. I feel like I am speeding up a little bit.
Stain on the grain of the timber, obscured in the trees and the towns. There's a sinister scent on the wind, and time's gonna come around. The red sun is going down. There's a devil inside of us all now. There's a giant to bring to the ground. He's taking us out when it falls. Our time's gonna come around. The red sun is going down, and there's a price to pay for all that we have done. Turn my eyes away and watch the setting sun.
I think writing for me is very much wish fulfillment, right? It's a combination of communication with the eventual reader and a desire to bring into reality a world with more rationality than the world we actually live in, perhaps. Writing is an act of manipulation. I guess all communication is. Just with writing, you have more time to do it in. Where you're trying to evoke a response. Okay, so that's we're done. Oh man, that coffee is good. My Secret Santa sure chose some good coffee for me. I'll have to thank her. Tell her how much I like that coffee. Last sword for today, chat. guess tomorrow we'll work on the lightning on the swords. Try and bring them a little bit more to life. Coffee burp. Definitely getting faster at this. I don't know if that means I'm getting better at it, or that I'm just getting sloppier. Can you see, Chad, how thick this paint is getting? My palette must not be quite wet enough. Since I'm doing this sort of streaky look to these swords, it actually works nicely with the brush strokes. Okay. Virtually there. One more side to a sword to do. And then we'll probably call it for today. That was actually pretty good timing. Get to the back side of this sword. This is actually a slightly difficult angle right here. day spent painting power swords. That's quite pleasant. Almost done. This is one of those, if it doesn't work in this area, that's okay, because it's the back side, inside, where fewer people are likely to look at it. Alright. Kinda, sorta, mostly works. There we go. It's an okay look. Yeah. So let's think about what still needs to be done on these figures. Their shoulder pads all need some work. I've got sort of a base coat on there, but there's considerable work that still needs to be done. There's a lot of little details that I'm going to be doing in silvers. I have to do belts and holsters and scabbards. All of that stuff needs to be done still. I've got 2 faces I need to paint, so that's going to be probably a considerable job. Got to do all the lightning on the swords, which is going to be a considerable job. I think tomorrow I'll do faces and lightning. So that's Tuesday. And then Wednesday we'll work on shoulder pads. That's Wednesday. Thursday I'll probably take off. I don't know, that doesn't get me there. It doesn't get me to finishing Friday, chat. I've got the back sides of all their shields to do, which admittedly is not a major task, but it's still something that's going to take a while. I might not finish them before the new year, but that's fine. When I started out, I wasn't really sure I was going to finish them before the new year, but we're getting close. We're making progress every day. Oh, thank you very much, Lobster. Good work so far. I appreciate it. I feel pretty good about where they are. We will see if tomorrow we can get the lightning and faces done. And then we'll see where we go from there. Just every day, a little bit more progress. Every day, a tiny bit closer. When I changed cameras, I lost sound? It doesn't look like I did? Yeah. Well, if you can hear me, I hope everybody has a pleasant day. Be excellent to each other, friends, and enjoy whatever art it is you choose to do. Yeah, I will see you tonight, and maybe see you over on Pies Chat. Have a great day, chat.